Let me introduce you to one of the proud supporters of From the Hawkeye of the Storm, Iowa floor covering down in Bondurant. Now, for the last year and a half, you've heard me talk about this great company in the heart of central Iowa. They've got their tough core, click together, 4.5 millimeter waterproof vinyl flooring, great for you DIYers out there. But even if you're just a contractor or you need a different type of flooring, they've got you covered, whether it be tile showers, carpet. Give Iowa Floor Covering a chance to serve you better and serve your flooring needs. Visit them online at iowafloorcovering.com. That's iowafloorcovering.com. Or you can give them a call at 515-379-7000. That's 515-379-7000. Thank you to Iowa Floor Covering in Bondurant. We are live. Myself, Coach Don Patterson, alongside me. And Don, it's always a good day to be talking Hawkeye football in August.
Yes, it is. 3 weeks away, and we got to get things right. But we got 3 weeks to do it, so I like our chances.
Don and I were both at the open practice, and if you have observations or questions for Coach Patterson or myself, maybe you were out there with your young ones today, it's always a fun day for the kids. I mean, I've grown to appreciate that aspect of what today was all about more and more, and then seeing Kirk with his grandkids afterwards. But anyways, if you have some thoughts, feel free to call in. StreamYard link is in the description, also pinned in the comment section on YouTube. We do appreciate Iowa Floor Covering. You see them up in the corner of the screen this direction. And you saw their ad. So, and we're actually working on updating that ad because IFC is for the long haul down in Bondurant. Be sure you check them out for your DIY flooring projects or your shower project, bathroom remodels, also a feature of what they do. We've got a total inventory, Don. We can run through some guys that were not playing today, some guys that did play that impressed, some guys that struggled. There were some aspects of today that I know Kirk was frustrated with. I don't think anybody's panicking right now. And then I haven't really talked much. I haven't talked at all, really, on the channel. And you and I have not spoken at all since Media Day yesterday. So we got a lot of contact with the players, coaches, and I learned some things that I want to be able to share. And I think there's some optimism, maybe some pessimism with certain aspects of what we see, but still time to work things out here over the coming weeks. I want to ask you a question out of the gates as a coach. Did you guys have an open practice to the public in August when you were here?
I don't recall that we did.
Did you do that ever at Western or at any of the other schools where you coached, UConn or at Buffalo? Did you guys hold open practices in August?
I think at Buffalo we did. UConn, I can't recall. I think at UConn, I believe we did too.
Okay.
So it's a more recent development than a tradition of the last 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I'll start at the top. Let's kind of run through an inventory and then, maybe comment on a few things here. For the first time, I think ever, I believe within the first half hour, I had a total inventory on everybody. And part of that is Kirk was real good about updating us on the health of some players yesterday. And the guys that were out today, most of them were precautionary. I don't know of any real serious injuries to guys who are expected to be either offensive or defensive impact guys. So let's run through some of the guys that were out today. One being your guy, TJ Hall. And I believe I can see over in the corner, I still see TJ's jersey. I asked him about that yesterday and what that meant to gift you with that jersey. But anyways, TJ was out today. I don't think it's serious. Kirk was pretty positive. You spoke with TJ at a practice here recently. Sounded like he was positive as well to come back soon.
Yeah, I think I was over maybe on Wednesday. And when I saw him, I said, "Are you okay, TJ?" And he said, "I'm fine, coach." He said, "I just took a helmet to my thigh, and it's going to be no more than a week." He did say that, and that was midweek when he said it. So I think TJ will be back at work, hopefully the early part of the week.
I think he's DB or let me make sure I'm phrasing that correctly. He's cornerback 1 right now. I don't think there's any question, and I don't think, based on trying to read between the lines, what I've heard, I think he's their number 1 guy at corner right now. I think the battle comes after that. I don't know that Deshaun Lee has solidified himself as the 2 option. I did not really notice Shaheed Barrows much today, but he has had good moments through camp. I know that. And then Jalen Watson was back today in uniform at practice. However, he's missed some time. As far as I'm aware, he's missed some time too. So DB might be the position that people in general are most concerned with.
Yeah.
I tend to downplay that a tad just because of who's coaching that room. Give Phil the benefit of the doubt, but they have had years where they've struggled. I think last year they struggled at the spot opposite Jamari. Talk about DB corner specifically. Was there anything that concerned you today or anything you learned?
Well, I was a little bit concerned that number 8 was playing defense, and some pass completions were in his neighborhood. We don't know exactly what the coverage requirement was, but it appeared that he was the man that was beaten on that play. I say beaten. I'm simply saying the ball was thrown and caught in his zone of defense. And it's hard to eliminate a good pass route and a good ball when it's thrown with accuracy and timing. And so it's not always the DB's fault when he gives up a pass reception. But as you've heard me say before, Corey, what is important is to have not 1 but 2 good corners, because otherwise they just pick on the weak link. And right now, as you suggested, TJ maybe has the upper hand in terms of cornerback play. But between now and September, we have to be more solid than what we are right now at cornerback. That appears to be a concern going forward. We haven't even talked about really solid depth behind those starters, whoever they are. And so that's a concern. And a good defensive coordinator can help out. You've heard me talk about rolling coverage toward the weaker corner. You can do that, but you don't want to make a living doing that either, because that means the off coverage is always on the other side of the field. And maybe that's a better matchup for you defensively. And yet if they got a great receiver, you're still going to lose that matchup. So there are other solutions, of course. You can roll up on both sides, but now you're vulnerable to inside receivers, because you imagine linebackers with play action middle routes, things like that. play action digs, in routes, if you will. So those are concerns. Zone defense is not just those two corners underneath deeper throws; it's those linebackers too, of course.
And I thought the linebackers looked solid today. I wasn't like zeroed in on that group, but I didn't notice anything glaring. And as far as I'm aware, Carson and Jaden, I'm talking about Carson Shire and Jaden Harrell, have been healthy for the most part since, those other guys in front of them, Jay Higgins, Nick Jackson, Kyler Fisher, took off. So that's big. Carson's really struggled with durability issues, and Kirk talked about that yesterday.
Right.
So those two are your two starters. And then, Jackson Rexroth, Landon Van Kekerix, Jaden Montgomery working in as maybe the weak side options.
Yeah, the frustration I have as a coach with days like today, it was what we call a thud practice. It was theoretically no tackling. So the reason I bring it up in discussing linebackers, even if they're making contact with the receiver or with the ball carrier, there's still that question in the back of your mind. I think he was going to get him to the ground, but you never know for sure, of course, until the game itself is played. So it's hard to practice tackling because there's a risk that goes with it, of course, relative to injury. And it's hard to know that we wouldn't have had some missed tackles today. Logically, you would suspect that we would have had some, but I'm not suggesting that 41 and 43 would have many. They've proven, if nothing else, in their days on specialty teams, they're pretty darn good open field tacklers. And that's one reason, of course, they're in those starting roles right now.
And I believe, this is just off the top of my head, receiver and linebacker may have been the only two groups that were totally healthy today as far as like not missing people.
That reminds me, Phillips is okay.
Yeah, so he went down at one point during today's practice. He started the day.
Any comment afterward from Kirk?
Kirk downplayed Sam Phillips' injury and Michael Myslinski's injury. And when we saw Michael Myslinski go down, that guy has just been wrecked with injuries since he was a good prospect out of Florida, picked Iowa over Michigan State and some other good offers. Iowa really liked him. They need him because I don't know who is the center after Logan Jones.
Yeah, he is the back at the center, right?
Tyler Ellsbury's gone, and so they need Michael Myslinski, whether it be a guard or a center. And he went down, got some treatment on his lower right leg, and never returned, but didn't look too serious, like he was still walking okay. And as I mentioned, Sam Phillips, both those guys, Kirk Ferentz, sort of said they'd be back here sooner rather than
later. To my knowledge, he took a ton of reps as the number 2 center, right?
He did, yep.
Yeah. Okay.
And a couple of the exchange issues. I know people want to talk about fumbling, whether it be on the more snapper, quarterback. I mean, there were some combos in there. It's not like it was all the same players involved. You had a couple mishaps, I thought, between Logan Jones and Mark Gronowski, two veterans. Although, again, Gronowski, talk about him being hurt and not getting maybe as many reps during the offseason. Right. Could that be a role there potentially at play? And then there was also a couple of mishaps when Jeremy Hecklinski was out there with Cale Winter, who was just filling in because Myslinski was out. So I don't know how much you read into those. What would you make of the snap issues, the fumbling issues?
Well, I do recall one of Hecklinski's fumbles. He was in direct, as we call it. He was underneath the center. And the thing we always coach our quarterbacks to do when they're underneath the center, understand that the center's going to snap the ball, but he's also going to come off his mark. He's going to try to gain some kind of search with the rest of the O-line. And the coaching point there is you got to ride the center. You got to be sure to keep your hands in position to receive the ball. And it looks to me like maybe Hecklinski did not do a good job of riding the center on that particular play. That was one ball that was on the ground. And to be able to brag on Hecklinski a little bit, I noticed even in practice on Wednesday, I believe it was Wednesday when I was there, he was, for what it's worth, he was the third quarterback on the field that day. I don't know how much to read into that. Obviously, it's not based on a lot of snaps because the majority of the snaps are going to 1 and 2. But for what it's worth right now, he's 2 plays away from being the starter. I hate to say it that way, but that's how the 13 players should think of it. I've got to get myself ready as best I can because, as I've reminded you of one time, Corey, or maybe several times, there was one year when we got down to our 5th quarterback, And that wasn't because the first 4 failed. It was simply because they were out with injury.
Right.
That's unusual. It only happened once in 20 years, but it can happen to you.
All right, let me run through the rest of housekeeping. So we started with TJ Hall out today. I'll run through the other guys who were not in uniform. Terrell Washington Jr. will probably play some this year at tailback. Has the chance to at least. Drew Campbell, Jack's younger brother, defensive edge guy, and he was not out, or he was not in practice today. Mason Woods was also in street clothes. Ty Hudkins, the Purdue DB transfer, he was out. Watts McBride, DB, was out. Starting running back Kamari Moulton, also out. I didn't perceive, based on language yesterday, I didn't perceive from the coaching staff like that was a real serious concern either, but that would be the other big one.
And very much precautionary. Yeah.
Yes, precautionary. I think most of these guys are. Chima Chineke, the Plano, Texas native defensive end, he was out in street clothes today. Jeremiah Pittman, he's another guy who will play on the interior of that defensive line. He's missed more time than some of these guys. And so I don't know, maybe some of the other media guys that were there yesterday, I never got a chance to ask Kelvin Bell specifically about Pitt, but he was out. So we'll see on timeline for him. Will Nolan out. He's been recovering from a serious offseason issue. Sounds like he's been missing a lot of offseason conditioning as well, which is unfortunate. It was good to see Tegan Davis out there in uniform, because Kirk at Big Ten Media Day said there was a chance that he may not return to the team. So it's good to see number 17 back out there. Bodie McCaslin, offensive lineman. George Nahas, the Iowa State transfer, who's coming in as a walk-on, he was out. Thomas Meyer was out at tight end, the freshman who has not been out the entire camp, because we saw a clip of him on social media making a catch, I believe, from Gronowski. So, where does he figure into the tight end room? We didn't get to see that today. Bo Stevens came out in uniform, but then as I was observing practice throughout, ended up in street clothes. I don't think he actually got reps today.
Mm-hmm.
So he's another guy to look out for. He's one guy that I had marked just heading into this weekend, because I hadn't seen him in any video from Iowa heading into the week. Jarrett Bowie was another guy who I hadn't seen in video. He was out there today. That's positive. And Kirk said he's been coming off injury. Right. So that's sort of a housekeeping rundown.
Well, Stevens is a concern, because for what I know, you always heard me talk about minimum of 8 linemen that can play winning football for you. And I would certainly think that Bo Stevens would be one of those 8.
Let's just jump to a different topic, because I see several people in the chat, and I had somebody comment this on social media, and maybe it's somebody who's here with us now, and I'm not ripping the comment, but I was really shocked to see the comment, and I think they were being serious. Yeah, like this talking on Hawkeye Sports user, and then also CJ kind of alluding to it. Gabe alludes to it, talking about the pick 6 from Mark Gronowski on the screen pass. And like, I had somebody ask me, is there a QB controversy? And I said, is less than 0% chance an option? Like, there's no controversy right now. And maybe I was watching a different practice. I didn't think Hank was any better than Mark. I thought there were a couple issues with Mark at the pick 6, but I'm taking Mark every day of the week, and I know Kirk is as well.
I don't think there's a controversy there. The comment I made, to try to look at it from a positive standpoint, I gave the defense good recognition on screens. We ran several screens, and invariably the defense was on top of the receiver. So you might ask, how does that happen? Well, it might start off with good recognition on the part of certain defenders in that part of the field. And obviously, they got to come forward and attack across the line of scrimmage, because the receivers got to be behind the line, of course. And if maybe part of our problem is, I don't know for sure, it's hard to know without seeing replay, but it might have been a case of the lineman getting out a little bit too late. Doesn't make sense to you, Corey. Linemen need to be able to block people across the line of scrimmage, simply because the ball's thrown behind the line, and you want the blocks to be happening, of course, downfield from the receiver. So in the case of the pick, he obviously got on our side of the line of scrimmage. Maybe it's because he's manned up on the back. I'm not sure. I don't really know what went wrong, but obviously you gotta. There's certain defenses you might even say, let's not run this screen versus man coverage, because for that very reason, if he moves the back, he's going to be on top of the receiver even before the ball gets there. That's what happened. So I don't know exactly how our quarterbacks are coached, but obviously you look off from where you're going to throw the screen. Not saying you should be able to throw it blindly toward your back, but it's hard to know exactly what's happening with defense because your eyes were somewhere else just a split second earlier. And that's why it's so important for the linemen to be able to pick up their blocks on the other side of the line of scrimmage and keep them off of our ball carrier, of course, our receiver.
I see this question from Alex Miller in the chat. He says, I heard Phil Parker was lighting into some of the DBs individually. Did you see that? What I saw was him really going after Alex Moda. I didn't see, I mean, again, you're trying to look all these different places. I did see that. What I observed most with the DBs, first of all, TJ was very engaged, even though he was in street clothes, which you like to see as a leader, because he is a leader in that room now.
Right.
And then the other aspect, Desmond King being back, I thought was big today. I mean, he was so involved with Jalen Watson and Rashad Godfrey and Deshaun Lee. And Kirk said afterwards that Dez has been back this week. He's not part of the staff yet. Maybe that will happen at some point. But his influence, and then he gave a really long post-practice speech to the entire team.
Desmond did.
Yeah, Desmond did. And so I guess two-part question here, Don. What does it mean when a former player with the acumen of a Desmond King comes back, especially for his position group? And then also Phil Parker, that's sort of how he coaches, right? Like he's got guys that love him, but he's also not afraid to get after him if he's not liking what he's seeing.
Right. Right. I know this. The players have great respect for those players that were in their shoes years earlier. And in Desmond's case, of course, played a lot of years in the NFL, played with a high level of success. And you can bet that the players are going to listen to each and every word that those former players do offer to them. Kirk's always good about giving those guys a chance to speak when they come back. And the players are always good listeners because they want to know, is there maybe some bit of wisdom that the players are going to give me that's going to help me to someday play the game the way they did? And that's the ultimate goal, of course, for any young players to be able to play on Sunday.
All right, folks, we are up for calls via StreamYard. We have the StreamYard link active. You don't have to be on video if you don't want to. I see lots of questions in the chat. We're more apt to get to your question if you come on and join the show briefly. It also give me an opportunity where this is sort of like instant reaction. You and I really didn't talk. I didn't have a ton of time to promote. I'm trying to get over here and get this show rolling. So folks, feel free to hop on and shoot the breeze with Coach Patterson and I here for at least the next hour or so. And I saw a question here from Juki who says, how did the running backs do today? Hard to judge that room because Kamari was out. And then Jazz, you noticed something with Jazz Patterson's usage today.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Corey, but he finally made an appearance late in the practice. I was expecting not to see number 4 at all. And right toward the end of the practice, all of a sudden he's in there. So he's obviously not very injured at this point. If he was going to be out entirely for the day, it would have been precautionary again, I think, as it is with Moulton. Is that the right pronunciation? Moulton?
Yep, Moulton, yeah.
Yeah. One thing I couldn't help but notice, I was impressed, and I told you this off the air, but I wrote it down this way. Nathan McNeil, promising. I thought maybe he might be the legitimate third-team running back. Maybe he's only fourth. You mentioned that our receiver that can also play running back, he's traditionally Washington's thought of traditionally as the third back. I like McNeil. He's a true freshman, right?
Yes.
He was pretty impressive. Now, again, the cautionary note, it wasn't a tackling drill, so I don't know how many times he would have pulled through and how many times he wouldn't have, but it's safe to say he's pretty slippery. He's got pretty good spurt, pretty good acceleration, appears to run with good vision. I like what I see. I can see why they wanted him to be on our team. Good prospect.
And that's a position kind of like DB where it seems like guys just get hurt. And we haven't seen like the serious knee injuries like we were seeing like 2012, 2013 on this turf. I always think I think it's the artificial turf has a role in that. We haven't seen that as much here recently with running backs last 5 to 10 years, but you said it best that the depth is going to be key. Like I think Terrell Washington, him being back will be big because he's going to play. McNeil's going to play. I think Xavier Williams could play. He was impressive last year as a true freshman at Kids Day, and I saw some some flashes from him. Again, reading between the lines because you're going up against non-first team players. And as far as the defensive line is concerned, I really thought the D-line looked good overall. Again, like you said, no real tackling and sacks, but there were a couple of quote-unquote simulated sacks. I thought that D-line was putting pretty good pressure on Gronowski to get that ball out. And I thought Gronowski handled it just fine. There were a couple of sacks that would have occurred, but that's why I'm not down on how Mark played today. Yeah, he had the pick, but he had some really nice throws down the field. But I thought Brian Allen Jr. had at least one or two decent QB pressures that were good. Max Llewellyn looked like he was a little ginger on a leg, so he collided with Rashad Godfrey on a play, and Max came back and played, but he was a little ginger on one of those legs as the practice went on. I think he's going to be their best edge guy. Mm-hmm. And anybody else that stood out on the defensive line? I know Bryce Hawthorne's gotten a lot of offseason talk.
I was going to say, correct if I'm wrong, to start the scrimmage, or the practice, I should say, inside you had Graves and Hawthorne. Those were the two starters.
Yes.
So, and Hawthorne's certainly big enough to hold up in there.
That's kind of what I expected. We have not seen an official depth chart, but that did not surprise me to see Hawthorne as the projected starter, or at least the guy right now who's getting first team reps.
Yeah. And as you expected, 48 and 49 outside.
Yep. And who knows? I mean, I don't want to discount Jeremiah Pittman because he is out with an injury right now, but that also doesn't help the cause. Jonah Pace will play. Brian Allen, I still don't know if he's more of you think he's more of an edge guy, or you think he'll line up more inside?
What's he listed size-wise right now? How big is he?
Yeah, he's what, 275, 280? Where is he here? 90.
Yeah, 264.
264. I mean, size-wise, he looks more like at that weight. He's more of an edge guy, correct?
Yeah, and we don't know that you would expect these weights to be accurate. After all, they're listing them to the nearest pound.
Yeah.
So that's if they were all multiples of 5, I'd wonder how accurate they were. But the fact that they're all individual numbers makes you think 264 is accurate. If that's the case, he's a little bit light to be playing inside because those centers and guards, of course, carry a lot of weight and a lot of strength.
Okay, BJ in the chat. Great question. How did the offensive tackles look in pass pro?
You know, I didn't see anybody just wearing us out off the edge with their tackles. There were times, of course, when number 11 didn't have a lot of time to throw, and he threw the ball away several times, of course. I thought he showed pretty good mobility when he had to escape the pocket. And you've always heard me say, pressure off the edge, you got to be prepared to step up in the pocket. And you still might end up being sacked, but let's face it, -2 is a lot different than -8. So there's times maybe when you step up in the pocket and there's really no place to go, you feel. But I think in general, Martin did a good job of throwing the ball away when he needed to and buying time. He's certainly got decent mobility, as we know. I've seen him play even back in 2022, and he's not to be confused with the most agile of the NFL quarterbacks, but he's got pretty darn good mobility, especially when you factor in the fact that he's a good, strong guy that can pull through some arm tackles in the process too.
We talked about injuries. The Sam Phillips one, I just wanted to address because there was a question here from Kelvin. Was he poked in the eye? So that's interesting that he said that. I don't know who put that out there, but what I saw on the sidelines was actually in that north end zone from where we were sitting on the east side of the east stands. It did look like his face was being tended to. So I couldn't tell if it was like a concussion protocol thing. Where they're looking at his eyes.
I thought it was actually his ankle or his foot.
I talked to Tom Kakert, HawkeyeReport.com, because he was in the area, and he said the same thing. It looked like leg, but I said, they're looking at his face. So I don't know. And we didn't ask Kirk specifically what the nature of that.
I did make a note. I think the very first few snaps of the scrimmage, the guys I saw most of the time, I shouldn't call it a scrimmage again, if there were 3 wideouts on the field in general, now this is a good thing to see. I saw other numbers with the ones too, but in general, I think I saw the most of 2, 5, and 6. 2, 5, and 6 were the guys getting most of the snaps, which I was glad to see because you've heard me say, I'm not concerned about height so much as I am ability to separate.
Right.
And Phillips is not that tall, of course, but he does have spurt. And of course, Seth Anderson has good speed and quickness. And then not to mention, you've heard me brag on Jacob Gill. I said last year, he's our most reliable receiver. I still feel that way. And somebody's going to have to go some to be more reliable this year than what Jacob will be. And of course, he's given us leadership too as one of the older, more experienced players at that position.
Okay, the question about offensive tackle, let me just add one thing into there, because that's why I turned to you, because I really don't know that anything stood out there, except I saw Bryce George, the Ferris State transfer, playing inside as well. So they were running him second team left tackle, second team left guard. And Kirk said yesterday that he was a little slow off the ball when he first got to Iowa. And do you remember us talking in the summer when he committed? And I was like, I'm going to just wait and see on offensive tackle transfers. Like, these guys look great. Hey, Dejan Parker was a great young man. Saginaw Valley, everybody wanted him. He was committed to a Power 5 before he came to Iowa, and then never really got his feet under him. Dealt with some injuries. Right. But Bryce is the same thing. It sounds like, unless the NCAA makes a change with their rules, this is his lone year remaining. And I just am hesitant about a guy who's transferring in who didn't even get spring ball here, right, trying to catch up with speed of play. Do you have any thoughts on what you saw from number 79 or just that side of the line in general?
Yeah, I will admit I didn't really zero in on him at all. That can be both good and bad. Maybe I would have noticed him if he'd clearly been beaten or didn't play. I didn't know how many snaps he got today. But I think one thing that makes me feel better, we need to be good for sure when we go to Ames in game 2, but at least it's not a conference game. And as you know, we have 3 games to get under our belt before we look at conference play. And I think there's maybe a bye in there. Is there a bye before game 4 or not?
No, I don't believe so. I believe the first bye is in October.
Okay. Well, at least we've got a few weeks, even in September, to get things right. And of course, having said that, we better have things pretty much hunky-dory before we go to Ames, because that's going to be a real test. I'm glad we don't start off with game 1 in Ames. At least we'll have a chance to get our feet wet in Kinnick before we have to go to Ames.
And just real quick, Mike, thank you for reminding everybody. If you're here, you got about 180 people. We were up over 200 for a little while. Please hit the like button. I can't overstate that enough, because that does help the show immensely in the algorithm. And it was fun. It was fun. You bring this up all the time. I mean, you've been coaching and in the public eye for so long.
Yeah.
It's always good when you have people come up to you and say, we loved the show. We love the show. We love watching you and Don, or whatever the case may be. And some people love watching all of the shows here, which we appreciate you. But one way you can show your appreciation, of course, you can donate, but also just hitting the like button, making sure you're subscribed, telling your friends, and keep coming up to Coach Patterson. When you see him at Kinnick, you'll be there a little bit more than me this fall. So, but I'll tell you what, I say this every year. Kids Day is the most fun day for me as someone who loves doing what I do and covering Iowa the way I cover it. It's like being a kid in the candy store, so to speak.
Yeah.
I mean, have you lost any of that, or you still feel the same way when you're able to be there at practice?
Right now, Corey, you brought that up. I flash back to the first college football game I ever saw in my life. It was University of Texas at Baylor in Waco, which is only an hour from my home. And I still remember this day, after the game, I got a chin strap from either Ted or Ernie Corey. I can't remember which one. They were brothers or twins, maybe even, for Texas. I was a big Longhorn fan back at the ripe old age of 10. And I got a chin strap from one of those guys, and I don't know where it ended up, but my mom probably threw it out when I wasn't looking, but it meant a lot to me at the time. And so I can relate to those 10-year-olds that are out there, following their favorite team and really interested in, if they ever have a chance to talk to one of our players, taking full advantage of that opportunity. And as you mentioned, Corey, people might wonder, do you ever get tired of talking football? As my wife has famously said, that's really all he knows. So I was reminded I know a little bit about finance too. And she should be glad that I do, because
You know about good food. You enjoy eating good food.
well, I do.
I mean, I saw somebody in the chat that said I needed to get you some pecan pie because you seem grumpy, which I don't think you seem grumpy, but pecan pie sounds good. Do you have any of those little tarts that you like? You got any of those on hand? Or? Okay.
Not at the moment. I've gotten another dessert that I've lined up, another treat, I should call it. I'll put in a plug right now for them. Famous Amos cookies.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know you love those Famous Amos. You buy the big boxes. Don't you buy the big Costco or Sam's Club boxes?
She'll order a box of them.
Okay.
There's 8 in the package, and I don't pick out and eat all 8 of those little cookies. I eat only 4 of them. So I'll have 4 one night and 4 the next night with a small glass of milk. And that's a wonderful late night snack for me. It's only 140 calories in those 4 cookies. So I don't want anybody to worry. I'm not gaining any weight, so I'm okay.
I don't think we're worried about that, Don. Okay, there were a couple other comments here we wanted to get to, questions, and then I've got a couple of other observations that we want to get to. So Alex Miller with another question on tight ends. That was something that I wanted to touch on. I think that group, this is going to be a really impactful like next 6 months. We always hear about how bowl prep is so impactful for young guys, but they're going to be really green after this year. I mean, assuming, again, eligibility-wise, you're going to lose Addison Estringa, Hayden Large. So it's going to be Zach Ortworth is going to be the vet. And then I don't know behind him. I'd love to see a guy like Michael Bird emerge. And he was working a lot with second team today. And I asked Abdul about his progression yesterday. It sounds like he's progressing.
I couldn't have noticed. I saw a lot of number 88 today. Large was out there a lot.
Large will play it this year, absolutely. Mason Woods was not in uniform, so he's a guy. Thomas Meyer was not in uniform. Eli Johnson is a guy who could come on. But tight end usage, I felt like there were people, and Alex alluded to it here in the chat, the usage in the passing game specifically was somewhat limited in year 1 under Lester. So the question has been over the offseason, will Iowa start to integrate more tight end usage in the passing game? Based on what we saw today, I'm going to say no. Because I didn't feel like, I don't know, I have a count, and somebody asked about stats. I was not tracking stats today.
I'm not sure how many times they were targeted. I do know today there were several balls broken up that were intended for tight ends. And the only comment I would make about that, just a thought, of course, there's always going to be contact shortly after the catch. That's just the nature of football. But one thing I used to preach to the tight ends, understand when the ball's in the air, guarding is fading from the ball. If anything, you squeeze to the ball. You don't fade from the ball, because catching it 200ths of a second quicker can be the difference in hanging on to it and not hanging on to it. And so that would be the only observation I had, is don't fade from the ball. When the ball's thrown, don't just assume I can just continue merrily downfield and wait for the ball to hit my hands. If it's a little bit, if you can catch it a split second earlier in close quarters, that's always a good thing to do. Squeeze to the ball, don't fade from it.
And Alex, a different Alex in the chat, says that he loves Famous Amos because they're about 40% chocolate chips.
They are.
And 40% is very exact.
They're unbelievably crisp. They're really excellent. I should get a commission from Famous Amos, but
I do like Chips Ahoy, not the chewy ones. I like the crunchy ones. I don't know that you probably wouldn't endorse them over Famous Amos, but
I would favor Famous Amos, but I'm no expert on Chips Ahoy.
And then Andrew Hodge says, apparently when you hit the like button on YouTube, there's a feature right now where the like button turns into a spinning football. I did not know that. I'll have to check that out later. Had no idea. So thank you for all these things YouTube does, and I usually don't know. So question here from Aiden about the wide receivers, specifically KJ Parker. I think some people expected, and I've been hearing a lot of good things about KJ, but there's been so much talk, and I know, like, I'm sure other media people put out, I know they do, they put out stuff, right? I'll put little tidbits out there as I hear them throughout camp or throughout practice or summer. And I think KJ's name has been hyped up a lot, and I think he's going to play a lot this year.
I do too. Let me say one other thing about KJ. KJ has another skill that might not be so obvious. He's our number 2 punt returner right now.
I was going to bring that up. He worked a lot today as a number 2 punt return guy, and I didn't see anything that was monumental from him as a receiver. But that also, I didn't see anything glaring from KJ as a receiver.
Yeah.
I think he's going to – I thought the best receiver on the field today was Seth Anderson.
He was pretty reliable. Let's say, talking about big plays, he had the 44-yarder, right?
Yep.
So just talking about – I'm just glad to see us put the ball downfield some. Anderson for 44. I believe Reese's catch was 33, I think. Not sure about the yardage. Diving catch by Dayton Howard. What I'm glad to see, we have any number of receivers. It's not hard to imagine that there might be as many as 6 or 8 of them that are capable of making big plays against anyone and everyone. So the good news, I guess, if we have an injury here and there at receiver, I think we have other guys that are capable of playing, maybe not as well, but almost as well. We have better depth than what we've had.
And I'm going to actually pull something up here in a second. We're talking about wide receivers, and we talked with Coach Lester yesterday, and we don't normally do this during a show, but I'm curious because I don't think you've seen the video, and some of our viewers, I'm sure, quite a few of our viewers did watch that video, so I'll get that ready as well. I'd like to share that video with people in just a second. But, I had notes here. Wide receivers look good overall. Weegan had a bad drop. And that's, I'm not going to read into one drop, but you always talk about, I don't care how many passes you catch. I care about how many you drop.
Right.
And he had a bad drop. And if there's anything that's held him back, English major,
right.
held him back from being able to be used more on offense, it's his route running and his hands.
Right.
So does that concern you that we saw a pretty glaring drop today from him?
Well, yes, of course, but I just always remind the guys, each and every time you drop a ball, just ask yourself, why did you drop it? Sometimes there's a good explanation, and it's simply a question. It might be as simple as you failed to look the ball in. You looked the ball all the way into your hands. Maybe you had thumbs out when you should have had thumbs in. Those kind of things. Just understand the proper position of your hands, and of course, you always try to cushion the ball. When it's coming at you with velocity, you cushion the ball. When you make contact with it, your hands need to give a little bit. You don't stab at the ball. You cushion the ball.
Yeah, so that was an observation. I just think overall the receivers looked substantially better. I think Tim, based on what he said yesterday, he doesn't hold back. Like, he's a pretty honest guy with the media. He's not a blowhard.
No.
But he'll give a long explanation on how he feels about something. And I don't really think he's into much coach speak. I rember somebody brought this up to me the other day, and folks, you may remember this if you're listening. I believe it was a question that I asked him during the season, one of their midweek press conferences. And I remember asking him after one of the games, might have been Minnesota, hey, do you want to air it out more? Like this past week, you didn't take any shots. And he spoke up and said, well, I wanted to. It got voted down. And I don't know that Kirk likes that. I have no idea. Kirk probably doesn't like that, but I like that, right? As a media person, as a fan, you like that. You liked it. And he's not ripping anybody. He's just saying, hey, if it's ultimately the head coach's decision, if he vetoes a play, or, last year at media day, he talked about waste downs. Ultimately, he says that's going to fall on the head coach. I'm going to tell Kirk, yeah, I've got one ready. Let's take a shot here if you're game. But if Kirk says no, it ain't going to happen. So I like that about Tim, that he's willing to be open with people.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Tim has a more aggressive play calling mentality than maybe anyone we've had in recent years. I'll just say it that way.
So, Aiden, in final answer to your question, I would not read too much into maybe lack of catches from KJ Parker, because I just think this group has a chance to all of a sudden go from being maybe the worst unit every single year to being maybe not one of the best units,
but at least more than respectable,
and maybe above average
yeah.
in the conference. We'll see. I think depth, I think collectively they're going to have to be there. I think being able to throw guys in different places, I think that's one thing that Tim also said yesterday is this offense, you can kind of interchange guys based on plays, and I think personnel, he's going to be able to be a little bit more flexible even than he was at Western Michigan based on what he learned at Green Bay. And, we haven't talked about special teams. That's the last thing I have noted. I thought it was a really good day from Reese Dakin. And, yeah, he was punting with the wind a little bit. He had a 60-plus yard kick.
Yeah.
At least
good
one.
hang time.
good hang time. I think he had one with poor hang time, but every other one was impressive. And Drew Stevens was phenomenal today. And there was some wind today. I thought both those guys were excellent. I didn't see any muffed punts. Granted, you're not, maybe seeing the pressure. That's one of those game day things. It's hard to simulate, but they haven't worked a lot on the return game, is what LeVar said yesterday.
And that's another vote for KJ Parker. Of course, you heard me say before, Corey, it is true. I feel the hardest skill in football is fielding punts, especially from a great punter. The ball's up there a long time, and when your hang time approaches 5 seconds, believe me, a lot of punt returners struggle to catch a ball that's in the air for 5 seconds. But I honestly believe that Parker has super hands as a receiver, if only evidenced by the fact that he's also reliable in fielding punts.
Right. Isn't that interesting, though, that Caden is good at fielding punts, and yet we're questioning his hands?
It seems like he's got no issue fielding punts, and yet he's had more difficulties in fielding passes than punts. Hard to explain.
Yeah. It just clicked in my mind as you were saying that.
Yeah. Other than under pressure, he fielded punts before he had an opportunity to field a lot of passes.
Right. And might there be just this thing about Caden that he just is a dog with, like, you got to be a special kind of cat. Tim Dwight, Charlie Jones, Cooper DeJean. You got to be a special kind of cat to return punts in general, and so maybe that inner dog comes out in him when he's out on there on punt returns. Yeah. So he's got to get that same mentality.
One thing for sure, as a punt returner, he's got great focus when the ball's in the air.
Yes.
Because he has good judgment on whether to field it or not, and he's shown that he's outstanding and consistently fielding the punt.
T. Hink asks a simple question. Was Mark better today, or was Cade better? Well, I guess he's talking probably last year. I don't even remember how Cade played last year. I mean, Cade got hurt 2 years ago at Kids Day. Kirk brought that up in the post-practice press conference. I thought Mark was really good today. I mean, I'm not panicking about that one interception and a few snaps that I think those are things they'll clean up, especially with Logan Jones as their best offensive lineman snapping to Mark.
If you put a gun to my head and you simply ask, which one do you have more confidence in? I would say Mark. Yeah.
And he's just he's a better runner. He's not coming off a serious lower leg injury like Cade. He's a better runner. He's got a better arm. Speaking of arms, Hecklinski, that guy's not afraid to take some risks with his arm. And I don't know how big of an arm he has, but he's a bit of a risk taker.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, of course. I wondered the other day, he was clearly the third guy to take snaps. And I wondered, because as you know, Shaggy throws a nice ball. And he's 4th or 5th on the depth chart right now. I don't know how that'll all play out.
He's also real quick, he's also dealing with a hernia.
I wasn't aware of that.
And so that's something that was brought up yesterday, and he's missed substantial time. I feel bad for him because I thought what he did last fall in stepping in the way he did was admirable, and it would have given him a shot to be QB2 this year. But he's missed so much time; it's really hampered his practice ability.
Yeah, I don't want to be disrespectful to Shaggy Jackson Stratton.
Yep.
He doesn't mind that I call him Shaggy. I know that. But I will tell you this. I don't mind mentioning it right now to our listeners even. Last year, after the UCLA game, I want to take you back in time. That very next week, after we lost at UCLA, I made a point of telling Jackson, just so you know, you played just fine against UCLA. You really did. You did not get us beat.
Agree.
We had problems more so on defense against UCLA, you might recall. And
yeah, I recall. Yeah. I recall the rushing attack from UCLA that didn't show up in almost any other game all season except against Iowa.
Yeah.
Odd.
So Jackson, I thought under very difficult circumstances, he did okay for himself. I was proud of him for how he played against UCLA, and I can't recall the other games as vividly as that one game.
He started at Maryland and won that game as a starter at Maryland. He's 1-0 as a starter.
Well, if I'm wrong, he was in there for Nebraska too, right?
Was he?
I think so, but maybe I'm wrong.
I'd have to go back and.
You'd say, well, whoever was taking snaps didn't get the job done because we only had 5 first downs, but
they won.
Absolutely.
That's how they win against Nebraska, right? It's just the stats don't ever make sense.
Well, just never forget this, Corey. Good teams find ways to win. Poor teams find ways to lose.
Yep.
And by definition, we've been a good team for a long time around here.
Okay. We're going to try to take a call here. Let's see if we can do this in an unorthodox fashion. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
It's Kyle Thompson.
Austin?
Kyle Thompson.
Oh, Kyle. Kyle Thompson. How are you, Kyle?
Good. How are you guys doing?
We're doing good.
All right. I couldn't make it to the practice, but was there pretty good positivity or a little bit of both from the practice today?
Yeah, I mean, I think overall what we've talked about has been a lot of positive. I think there's some valid concerns. I mean, Kyle, you were asking that question, and Juki asked kind of the same question. What's the overall story headlines from the scrimmage today? Improved receiver play, really good special teams. They've had some ups and downs all fall. It was all August so far. We're still early, but I think defensive line is strong, what I expected. Linebackers look fine. They got to get healthy at DB and figure out corner. And I think, the question about, I saw DG 2900 asked about safety. I think they've been, based on what I've heard, really good there. As long as X and Cohen stay healthy, X has had a really good camp. Cohen has obviously impressed his teammates and has earned the respect of everyone around him. So, I don't know if there's one major storyline coming out of today, but I think a lot of good. It's just hard because you're evaluating, Don, the Iowa offense versus the Iowa defense. You're not going up against other Big Ten competition.
And it's a third practice. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not a scrimmage.
Yeah, they're not. It's not a full tackle practice, Kyle.
Yeah, I know that. But was there any I think my topic for coming in the season, I heard was concern about DB. Was there any good DB play today?
Good DB play today, Don. Cohen Intringer had that's not corner, but he had a pick six.
Mm-hmm.
Was that him on the screen pass?
Yes,
pick six. So that was good. Again, I have no concerns about him, and I can't believe I'm saying that because he's never really been a solidified starter. And I feel better about Xavier at free than I did heading into the offseason when I heard that change was going to occur. Anything else that stood out as far as DBs are
I'm
concerned?
talking about Xavier. Xavier this is his senior year, is that right?
Correct.
I flashed back on something that happened years ago when I was at Iowa in the 90s. I was the pro liaison, so I was the assistant coach that would talk to the scouts when they came in. And I flashed back on a guy I recruited out of Dallas, Hillcrest High School years ago. I remember telling the pro scouts with 1 year left, I told them this about this young man. I said, up until now, he hasn't made much of a splash, but it really would not surprise me if Damian Robinson had a huge senior year. And he did have a huge senior year, and he played, I think, about 8 years in the NFL. So he came through, and what made me think of Damian Robinson, I kind of see Xavier in that same light. He's got a world of potential, and my hope for him is that he's able to realize his full potential this year, because if he does, I think he certainly might be playing on Sunday too. But he's got to get that done. He's got to make that last step to put himself in position, of course, to play on Sunday. And but I don't doubt that he gets that done because he does have the ability to perform at a high level.
Kyle, we appreciate you calling in, sir. And if we don't talk to you before, we'll talk to you after game one.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Kyle. Okay, I see Alex here is in the chat, and there's a different Alex in the queue. So we're going to get to Alex after the Super Chat, D. Rollifson. Thank you for the Super Chat, D. Rollifson. When do we get storages of the trophy balls? So does that mean he wants cases? He wants you to put the trophy footballs in cases? Is that what he's saying?
I guess that's what he wants.
Yeah, this is not Don's kitchen. I saw somebody earlier saying your kitchen looks really good. This is just your little man cave down here, and
yeah,
I wouldn't put that above an oven that was splattering grease or anything.
I would
but I think
point out around those footballs in that lower shelf, you can't really tell what it is, but it's a display of the 5 championship rings I have, and you really can't see it very well.
Oh, I see that now. I was looking at the coffee.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, that is cool. Yeah.
So
I don't think people probably would know. I'd never noticed that. And I see a couple. There's you got a couple of like a Yukon ball up there. You got a Buffalo ball up there. You got a famous Idaho Potato Bowl, one of my
we got
favorite
a
bowl
little
games.
bit of a mix.
Yeah, you have a nice mix up there, so that's really neat. And T. Hink wants to know if the fumbling was more of a quarterback issue or a center issue. What would you say overall on that? Because again, they varied with personnel involved in those fumbles, and there was also DJ Vonneman had a fumble today, tight end.
Yeah, in my mind, as an old quarterback coach, I would simply tell them this: if you don't feel the snap, that's on you. And if the guy's only human, he's got to snap and block, so you got to be prepared for the ball to be a little bit off target. And so, don't ever take the snap for granted. You know, you have pre-snap decision making, and then once you decide to call for the ball, your entire focus has to be on that snap. And you should be prepared for the fact that it might not be accurately snapped, because the guy snapping it's got work to do shortly after the snap. So let's cut him some slack. I like to say, even when the ball's on the ground, if we're in direct formation, I would always get the center and the quarterback together, and I would say, okay, let's establish this now. It's not your fault. It's not your fault either. It's the fault of both of you. So let's get our heads together and solve the snap thing. And that usually took care of it.
And I'm okay with a bad day like this happening for a guy like Logan. I'm not saying it's Logan Jones, but if it's partly on Logan, that dude's gotten, deservedly so, fine. But he's getting all the accolades, maybe best lineman in the Big Ten, yada, yada, yada. He's going to draft pick. Great. Well, right. Let's take a piece of humble pie. Maybe he needs it, maybe he doesn't. He seems like a pretty level-headed kid, but he'll correct it. He's a really good football player.
You can bet. His goal is for all those snaps to be right there into those hands. He's going to be his own worst critic. That's just one reason he's been successful up until now, is he's got a high standard of performance. That's his goal always. So if the snaps are a little bit off target and it's on him, you can bet he's going to take it to heart. He's going to take steps to correct it. And I would bet on his ability to get that solved. But the bottom line, I want to assign some blame to both the snapper and the quarterback, because if the ball's on the ground, you're both at fault. That's the bottom line.
Really appreciate the comment here in the chat from Carrie, who says she's never been to a kids' day, which, Carrie, even if you don't have young ones, go to a kids' day. It's a cool event. But she says she went to her first game back in '87 at Kinnick when she was 9 years old, and she gets the same feeling every time she goes to a game. So Kinnick is a special place.
Yes, it is.
Like I said, even on a day like Kids' Day where, you're an eighth of the way full or a sixth, whatever it was today, it's still a really cool event. And just a number of kids lined up there. And what I really appreciated, Don, is as the fans get older, and as you become an avid fan and you're following the roster and you're looking at depth charts and you love this stuff, and I love it too. It's part of what makes the show happen. Mm-hmm. People are so concerned with who's playing, who's getting stats, who's going to get drafted, who's getting Big Ten national accolades. But those young kids don't care. I mean, they don't know the difference.
Sure.
They just see a kid. And I was give a shout out to a couple of guys here today. I had some good friends that were there with their kids. Mm-hmm. And a couple of the guys, one being Cale Crow, who I don't know has ever appeared on a depth chart at Iowa. I believe Cale is, I just want to make sure I'm not speaking out of turn. He is a junior. So maybe he'll still end up somewhere. I think he's more of a tackle than guard, but he's not appeared on the depth chart that I'm aware of. He's from Story County, from Huxley. Mm-hmm. He took the time. All the guys did, but I appreciated Cale. They don't know that he's not playing and that he's not some cemented starter. Same thing with Michael Burt. Michael Burt was great, and he's always great, taking the time to talk to people, and especially the young kids. You appreciate that out of young ones, and that's one of the things that I appreciated about Kids Day. So, Carrie, absolutely agree. And get over there if you can, just to be able to see that, experience it. It's really neat. All right, let's go to our next caller. We've got Alex Miller here joining. Alex, welcome.
Hey, Corey. Hey, Don. How you guys doing?
Try again, Alex. We could not hear you.
Can you hear me now?
We got you, sir. How are you?
How you guys doing? Good.
We're doing good.
Just a couple position groups I was curious about. I've heard a little bit about the linebackers, mainly that they played all right, but what does that mean? I mean, I've seen Carson Shire on special teams take people's heads off, and heard rave reviews about Harrell, I think it is. You know, were they all right today, or what were they?
Yeah, I didn't notice anything glaring about them. I mean, how would you describe linebacker play?
You know, it's hard to tell again when it's not a tackle drill. The one thing I did see, I couldn't help but notice in pass coverage, they showed good awareness. I remember one time in particular, 43, that's Shire, right?
Yes.
He did a good job of undercutting a route over the middle of the field and was almost in position to intercept it. He couldn't have played the ball much better than he did. So that was a good sign. It didn't result in an interception, but it was well played on his part. And of course, it's not enough to be a one-dimensional linebacker. You can't be good against the run and no good versus pass, or vice versa. You got to be strong in both areas. And those guys are committed to getting that done. And what gives me a lot of hope, they've enjoyed good health as far as Corey and I know, not just throughout camp, but even last spring and last fall for that matter. Of course, last fall they were no more for specialty team play. But a good example, of course, would be Jay Higgins. Jay Higgins was getting prepared to be a great linebacker before he ever started for Iowa. He was the backup, as you know, to our guy playing for the Detroit Lions now. And he was more than prepared to go into that job simply because he'd been the best possible backup. And he was ready to take over as a starter. And I've got a lot of hope for 41 and 43 that they're going to play at a high level, because this is not nearly their first rodeo. They haven't been out there as starting linebackers in the past, but they've been preparing for a long time to be those starting linebackers. And now's their opportunity. I would expect they're going to take full advantage of that opportunity.
And part of me reads more into what I've been hearing over the course of a number of practices, more so than just what we saw in a snapshot today.
Right.
And have heard really good things about both of those top two guys. And as I alluded to earlier, Alex, I think you're going to see a mix. We'll see if it ends up being a mix by week one, but Rex Roth and Van Kekerix on the field. And then Lutmer's the cash guy, but I'm talking the 4-3 formation when you have a third true linebacker on the field, and then Jaden Montgomery, you know, it's his time now as an upperclassman to start producing. And it was good to see the fact that room was totally healthy today, because they do have a lot of young guys. I mean, Preston Reese, you probably saw this, Alex. Preston Reese wasn't he on the freaks list by ESPN? He was on like their top 100 freaks because he's got some crazy
squatted
weightlifting.
Like 725.
He squatted 725. I mean, so I don't know that Preston Reese is close to playing. Maybe he will on special teams, but between Reese and Weisskopf and the guys I just mentioned, I feel like I'm missing somebody obvious in there. Cam Buffington's another one that I shouldn't pass over. Kirk did say this yesterday, Alex. This is what I can say from the press conference with Kirk yesterday, that there are guys nipping at the heels of Harrell and Shire, at least pushing those guys. And again, Shire has struggled with durability, so they have to have depth.
Yeah.
So I think depth is I'm not too worried about those top two. I'm not saying they're going to be Higgins and Nick Jackson, but they also have a terrific position coach in Seth Wallace working with them right now. So
very true.
Anything else, Alex?
How was the running game looking? I heard they were running some screen passes and stuff, which maybe kind of made me a little worried that maybe the running game isn't quite as good as last year, and the passing game getting better doesn't help a whole lot if the running game gets worse.
I think I haven't really made any big bold predictions, but I do think the run game is going to take a step back this year. I mean, I'm just looking overall, big picture. I think it'll take a step back. And if it doesn't, then I might just jump on the playoff train right now. But I think they'll take a step back because I think they'll need it less, and they don't have Caleb Johnson, and they also lost some offensive linemen, and there's some questions up front at left tackle, at left guard. But McNeil flashed. We just didn't get to see Kamari and Jazz like we expected. For whatever reason on Jazz, Kamari's out with an injury.
Right, and you have every reason to believe that our passing game is going to take a step forward.
Yes.
So in the end, I think it's realistic to think we're going to be able to achieve even better on offense than what we achieved a year ago.
Yeah, I think so. And Terrell Washington was also out today. But if they're there is such a thing as passing to open up the run, right? I mean, like, I know that seems like a totally foreign concept to Iowa fans, but that does happen. So if they can increase production at receiver and in the passing game at quarterback, certainly that can help, even if maybe they're not blocking as well. They don't have as high-end production like they had last year from a guy like Caleb Johnson. Because I mean, that's one thing I will say, Alex, yesterday, that when he said it, I kind of like paused, like, okay, do I read into this? Do I not read into this? But Kirk was asked, who's the top guy at running back? And I think the logical response to that is, we like our top two guys. Mm-hmm. And Kirk didn't say that. He said, I have no idea. So again, I'm saying I should read into that response, because you could read into that and assume that he meant we don't really have anybody emerging right now. And that's not a good thing. Or it means he's got several guys he's comfortable with. I don't know which he meant by that. I think Kamari is going to be the guy taking the most snaps this year. And by the way, I know I'm rambling a bit, but last year, you may not recall this, but it was several games into the 2024 season before we even saw Jazz getting snaps. Because I remember asking Liddell Betts, like, what's going on with Jazz Patterson?
Right.
And I never really got an answer. Like, was it just a matter of, well, Caleb, once he came back from his half-game suspension, he was just rolling. But that surprised me. And so, like, it surprised me that we didn't see him more today, but I just don't know. I don't know if he's hampering or coming off of an injury and hampered by that, or what the deal is. So I know that's a long answer, Alex.
No worries. Final question. Obviously, as an Iowa fan, you got to be a sicko for punting. It's been reported a couple different places that Reese Dakin had multiple 80-yard air punts. Was that real, or was that overhyped? Because obviously that's kind of incredible.
Yeah, I saw that comment in the chat about 80-yard. I didn't see any 80-yard punts.
Yeah, let's only talk about punts as they relate to the line of scrimmage. But those balls that were in the air for 80 yards, typically, put it this way, they were snapping on the 20, and the balls were being fielded on the other 15-yard line. That's 65 yards from the line of scrimmage. So probably from where he hit the ball,
he maybe kicked the ball 80 yards, but
went about 75 at least.
That would never show up that way in a box score.
Right.
So,
sure, yes, it just means if he's standing on his 1 yard line, he's putting them inside the 20.
No. Yards. You mean if he's
air yards, like from where he punts it?
The punter standing on the 1 yard line.
Around, maybe.
It would be at least 75 yards down.
I will say there were a couple, and I mean, regardless of yardage, it was early in the practice, and I know he had some wind with him. But it was early in the practice, and I was like, my gosh, that guy. I mean, we know he's got a big leg, but he doesn't hurt for leg strength. They need him to stay healthy, and I know Punter is like, well, why would he get hurt? It still happens. Ty Nissen does not have the leg that Reese Dakin has. They need Ty Nissen to stay healthy so he can hold, because he's a better holder. But they need Reese Dakin because Iowa's still going to need to pin teams back.
Yeah, right now, without beating up our backup punter, there's a big difference between number 1 and number 2. We better keep number 1 healthy.
What you guys talking about the linebackers actually got me thinking about. We haven't seen much of Lutmer, who's playing cash now. Were they running as much cash as they do in the past, or were they running more 4-3 since we got so many good linebackers?
Don, did you see how much they had a third linebacker?
I'm not sure what the mix was today. I didn't notice that much 3 linebacker defense. I think in general we were playing with the cash.
Sounds good.
This question, I mean, that is a question. I mean, I like Zach Lutmer as a prospect, but he is filling shoes. It seems like every year they figure it out at cash, but every year they have somebody really good. So it's like, well, he's also replacing Sebastian Castro, who was extremely productive. So, yeah.
He didn't jump off the page when he played last year. He was younger,
Zach?
but.
You talking about Lutmer?
Yeah.
We didn't play much last year, did he?
No, but we got to realize since then we're talking about an entire spring ball session, not to mention here in August. And for that matter, they were also, of course, working on football even in the months of June and July.
I mean, he did play some. I'm not discounting that. He's played on special teams, but
the only time I remember him playing, he got beat for a touchdown. So that stands out in my memory.
I think what stands out on memory for TJ Hall is him getting beat for touchdowns. So you got to overcome that reputation, right? Trial by fire. Maybe that's a good thing. Those guys will look back later. So,
well, that's all for me. Thank you guys. Have a good show.
Thank you, Alex. Appreciate it. Dustin in the chat, he says Dakin looked like a human jugs machine early in practice. Booming tight spirals. Yes, indeed. Absolutely. And speaking of the punt game, special teams, I alluded to the wind. It was a fairly mild wind day. There was some out there, and then it was hot when we first got out there. I mean, really hot at like 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
But then the sun went behind clouds, and it really cooled things down, and nice breeze. I was I mean, you're tired by the end of everything, but you were up in the press box. We talked about that yet?
No, we haven't mentioned that.
But I thought the weather was actually really nice for Kids Day.
Yeah, let's talk about the wind for a second. You'll find this interesting. Of course, between one season and the next, I have a lot of time to do research. One of the things I did, based on last season, I looked at all 82 games that were played in the Big Ten, and I was simply looking for a significant wind. Let me explain what that is. When you access a play-by-play from a game, that's an official printed record of the game, of course. They do list wind direction and velocity on the front of that play-by-play, but that's wind at kickoff. And then to go one step further, I looked at all 18 stadiums, 9 of which are true north-south. Kinnick is a true north-south, and half the league has a true north-south stadium. There are a couple of stadiums, believe it or not, that are east-west. That would be Minnesota and Southern Cal. Minnesota, I believe, because they want the fans to be able to look out one end of the stadium and see downtown Minneapolis. And I think that's true. I think that's why they built it that way. And the Coliseum years ago in LA was built as an east-west stadium too. So, and in between, you've got stadiums that are laid out to the terrain. And they're sometimes northwest, southeast, sometimes they're north, northeast, south, southwest. Okay. Believe it or not.
What are we, meteorology now? But go ahead.
Yeah. So, long story short, I analyzed the wind in all 82 games, at least the kickoff wind. Actually, 2 of those 82 games didn't have any wind recording. I had to assume no wind for those 2. And there were, I believe, 9 games that had a true crosswind. Believe it or not, 2 of those 9 games were in Kinnick. Last year, twice, and we're a true north-south stadium, the wind was listed out of the east at 8 miles an hour, 10 miles an hour, whatever. So to come up with significant wind, I said the wind has to be blowing at least more than 5 miles per hour, and it cannot be a true crosswind. And at that point, there's a wind advantage and a wind disadvantage. The thing that shocked me, there were only 42 out of 82 games that had what I defined as significant wind. And that wasn't even that much wind. 6 miles an hour would do it to count. There were any number of games, and the one that comes to mind for me is Southern California. There's not much wind at all in Southern California in the fall. And believe it or not, even in the Midwest, you think about it, we have ideal weather for football. What's a typical Saturday in October? Sunshine, no wind, very little wind, and no precip either. So the wind advantage is there in some games, of course. I would say the 42 games, about half of them had wind that were 10 miles an hour or more, none of which were over 20, incidentally. And then the others were somewhere between 6 and 9, not a lot of wind.
We got about 15 minutes left, folks, here with Coach Patterson and I. We have James on hold. We're going to run through some of these questions here before we get to James. Logan wants to know about the 2 big throws from Mark Gronowski. Other than those 2 throws, did you see positive things as it relates to decision-making, scrambling, etc.? I think the big thing is he didn't get hurt like he did 2 years ago, but just thoughts on what you saw other than the 2 big throws.
I thought he showed good mobility, pulled the ball down, and I've seen him play before, and I promise you he's not lacking for courage. I'm sure that Tim's going to temper him by reminding him, listen, We need you to stay healthy this entire football season. And the way we used to teach it, if it's first and second down, you have to protect yourself. You get what yardage you can, and then you get on the ground before you take a hard hit. Now, if it isn't critical down, if it's third down, and we're going to have to punt if there's a fourth down, on that third down, when you pull the ball down and run, I always used to say, congratulations, you just became a running back. So I do not expect you to slide. I expect you to strain for those necessary yards so you can earn us 4 more downs. And that's the way Mark will play in the fall. He'll have good judgment. If he can protect himself on early downs, he'll do it. But he's an above-average runner, and he's got a good sense of when to pull the ball down and when to keep standing in the pocket. He's got a good clock in his head. He understands how much time you have to get rid of the football. Don't forget, he's played on a lot of football games, and you might say that's only FCS football. Well, I got news for you. If you're playing for the national championship and you're on national TV and there's 10 million people watching the game, there's a little bit of pressure there too. He'll perform just fine in all these big stadiums that we end up playing in. He'll perform well this fall. I'm confident in saying that.
And it's a QB's guy right here, folks. So listen when he speaks. Kelvin says, do you catch punts with arms, passes, hands? It's a good question. I know you were never a special teams coach, but you did coach some.
Well,
have you coached wideouts officially?
Yeah.
Okay.
I coached wideouts and quarterbacks in the 90s. Tim DeWhite was one of those rare birds. If the ball was coming in, it was a little higher than what he expected. He just simply extend his hands and catch it with his hands, just like it was a long pass. Most people teach punt returners, to have their chin on the ball so that the ball is coming down under the chin. And now you catch it with a basket, as you say. Your thumbs are out. Typically, when you catch it, you're catching it around your waist. You don't want to have to feel it outside your body, except Tim DeWhite had such good hands, he would feel it. Even in those predicaments, too. He could run. They try to punt away from him. He'd run the ball down and catch it on the dead run. You've seen him do that, of course. I'd be nervous if he couldn't field the ball so well. But Tim always fielded it without problems and always did something with it after the catch, too.
And there were a couple of plays today that featured some impressive catches. One being, and it was ruled out of bounds, but Hecklinski to Weegan toward that southeast pylon. They ruled it out. I think it would have gone to the review booth, and I think it would have been overturned.
Yeah, a couple of the guys upstairs said, these are media guys. They just voiced to anybody nearby, that looked like a catch to me. That's what they said.
Yeah.
And we couldn't see it well because it was on the far sideline, but it was certainly a play that would have been reviewed one way or the other.
And also there was at least 2 really impressive catches from Seth Anderson. We talked about RVZ deep.
I remember Dayton Howard too with the diving catch.
Yeah. So again, those are all positives. James says, who looked best of the backup quarterbacks? Probably Hank Brown, but we saw him the most too.
Yeah.
Hecklinski got quite a bit of time too. Hecklinski's he's going to be a project, but I've heard from people in the first week and a half or 2 weeks of fall camp that have said they think he's the future. So we'll see. What does that mean? Is it going to be 2 years and 1 year? Mark's only got this year, so maybe he'll be the guy next year. So I know they like him, and there's a reason why they brought in Warren along with, or I should say Hecklinski along with Coach Warren from Wake.
Right.
T. Hink, the throw from Jeremy to Weegan was a catch. Yeah, he says the same thing. So Jeffrey says, do you think Xavier Wampa has the skill set to become like Bob Sanders this year? If so, this defense could be absolutely brutal from front to back. I'm going to say no, because Bob Sanders is such a high mark.
Bob Sanders was a tackling machine.
Yeah. They don't make him like Bob Sanders very much.
Xavier's going to have to go some to catch it with Bob Sanders.
Yeah. Dustin, thank you for the compliment. We enjoyed being together on this show. And Claire says, how did the backup O-line look? That's a good question. Hard to, O-line's hard anyways, for me at least.
It is hard to tell.
Trying to rate the second team versus second team.
Yeah, I just don't know who.
Center is going to be a question at second team, especially if Myslinski is not healthy.
Yeah, and it's entirely possible. I don't know how it'll all shake out, but obviously you need to be able to wear more than one hat. You've heard me talk about before, minimum of 8 players. That would assume you can have 2 at center. You can have a third guard, and one of those 3 guards has to be able to play both left and right. Same with tackle, a minimum of 3 tackles, one of which has to swing both left and right. Anything short of that, you simply don't have enough players. Having said that, nothing says that a starting guard might be your backup center. That's a possibility, especially if he's got some history of playing center in the past. You think of centers and guards as having a similar body type. The longer frames, of course, are at tackle. And in that regard, it's entirely possible that a guard might be able to service also as a center.
So your top 3 guys right now, O-line, Jennings Dunker, Logan Jones, Bo Stevens. And then I think the guys to watch, folks, for the next couple of weeks or kind of stay attuned to the depth chart when that comes out before week 1 would be Cade Pieper. I think he's probably got the best chance of being one of the starters at guard opposite Bo Stevens. Trevor Lauk could end up being that left tackle. I still not going to write off Bryce George, the Ferris State transfer. Leighton Jones was in there really early, so keep an eye on him. Jack Dotzler also was running as a second-team left tackle and maybe even some first-team today. Those would probably be where I would start, those guys. And then maybe I know Lucas Allgaier has impressed some people, the legacy kid. He's a man, as a true freshman, but it's hard to play offensive line as a true freshman. So maybe he's a dark horse. Josh Shanowski might be a dark horse. And then, I want to see Myslinski just because he's a great story, sad story to some extent, but he's fought through adversity. Hopefully he's good after today. Nate says, it's Nate from Kids Day. It was great to meet you. Thank you, Nate. Appreciate you coming up and saying hi. Great to meet you as well. Always enjoy running into people that listen to the show. And as always, a tribute to the show, Don makes this show great. So if you see Don's at all the home games as well. Does the Western Illinois appreciation thing this year fall on a home game for Iowa? Do you remember there's
only one Western game I can see this year because I'll never pass up an Iowa game. Iowa home game, I should say.
Okay.
If I was
so
on
you
the road,
plan that out accordingly. Okay.
Yeah.
And M. Finn says it's safe to say whoever at QB is significantly more mobile to the previous season starters. Yes, because Brendan Sullivan was never a seasoned starter, so to speak.
Brown's a good athlete too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Brendan Sullivan would have been right in that conversation as well. T. Hink says, is there a reason why Iowa doesn't clap on snaps? It seems like every college team claps.
I'm not sure what the thought process is there.
Seth wants to know, who do you think leads the team in tackles this year?
I'd bet
Harold.
Probably. Yeah, I'd bet 41 does.
Yeah.
Sure, not far behind though. I think probably it's hard to really say which one will win out. They'll both register a lot of tackles.
Hopefully Zach Lutmer is productive there as well, because they're going to need him when he's on the field on defense. And let's see, talking Hawkeye sports here says, was Dahl out there as a running back or punt returner?
He was taking snaps as a running back.
As both. Yeah. I think he got some punt return.
I wasn't sure about punt return. I know I saw him as a running back.
We didn't see any kick return stuff. That hasn't been implemented yet. So,
no.
Okay. And let's see, we got 2 people in the chat. James is with us. James, thank you for being a caller in our show.
I have 2 questions, and then I'll let you guys get on because I know you guys are almost
James,
done.
I recognize that voice anywhere.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing well.
First question is, you said Jazz and Terrell didn't play that much. So who was the running backs that were out there?
Terrell was out totally. He didn't play at all. It was a lot of Nate McNeil and Xavier Williams.
Yeah.
And some of Brevin Dahl. Who am I missing there? It was those guys, Don. Am I missing anybody that I don't have anybody else in my notes, James?
Yeah, the primaries were 26, 25, and 23.
We saw a little of Braden Jackson, Fred Jackson's kid, 22. Saw a little bit of him.
I didn't remember him, but I remember the other 3, and I wrote their numbers down. 26, 25, 23.
Yeah, I think Braden Jackson would have been the next guy there. But again, limited snaps, sort of like Ryan Fitzgerald there at the end. So I would say we learned the least amount regarding running back today, just because of the health of the room.
Yeah.
Yeah, that also scares me a little bit just because, you know, like you feel like you have the pieces at the top, obviously with Kamari and Jazz and even Terrell, you've seen a bit, but like if they're not healthy, you kind of don't know after that, right? But then also at corner, I know TJ didn't dress at all, and then I know Jalen was, you know, like very limited. So like what they do there, was it Godfrey and Sean Lee? Was that who they ran out as starters, or?
I think primarily there was those two, yeah. Number 8, number 7. Deshaun's number 8. Who's number 7?
And Jalen was out there some.
Godfrey.
There's Jalen 3. 3 was out
Yeah.
there as well.
It just said he was limited when I read the thing. It said he was limited. He wasn't playing.
Well, I guess I wasn't tracking snap counts, but I just know he's been dinged up.
I'm not sure that 7 got more snaps than 3. I just noticed 7 real early.
Yep.
Did he play at all?
Deshaun was I would say the top guy without TJ in today.
Yeah, I think so. He's the one with the most experience, of course, too.
Did they play any of Shaheed Barrows at all?
Shaheed Barrows?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was out there as well, 5. And I talked about this on the show, James. I heard good things about him so far in camp. Again, I didn't notice him out there today. I mean, I noticed him out there. I know he was out there, but I just didn't notice anything one way or the other.
Yeah.
He's in that conversation for sure. And then I'll throw in a name. True freshman Jacob Wallace, number 11. He was out there quite a bit. I don't know that he was ever in there on first team snaps, but he was seeing a little bit more time and making some plays out there as a special second team, for a true freshman.
True freshman,
yeah. So I was impressed with him as well. Maybe he's a guy that could remember. Phil's not afraid to play true freshman at corner. So look out for Jacob Wallace. Look out for Olante Dean. Look out for CJ Bell. Those guys enrolled early, as you know, James. So, those guys they got an opportunity to make an impact. Might be Iowa's weakest position overall.
When you say enrolled early, Corey, you're saying they were around for spring ball.
They
right?
were, yeah. And more guys are enrolling now. You know this, James, Coach. I know it's not been a traditional thing at Iowa to have a ton of guys enroll early, but most programs now are getting a bunch of guys to enroll early, and Iowa's starting to do that. They already got a laundry list for 26 guys, but they had more guys this year as well, so maybe that will pay dividends more early. So
it also was really cool. It also was really cool to see Desmond King back and helping out too. I seen pictures of him like they're helping out some of the DBs too, right? Because like obviously Phil Parker is one of the best DB coaches in the country, but also he helped Desmond King become one of the best DBs at his time in college. You know, when he was at Iowa, right? So like obviously, if anybody understands what Phil Parker wants from these guys, it's him, right? He's one of the guys that understands what Phil Parker wants out of him. So have him back, kind of teaching those guys what to do and like what he saw and how he did things that way was a very cool sight to see.
It was. And then you talked to the whole team and really shared a long moment with Kirk Ferentz after practice. Can I just say one thing before I forget it? We've been going this whole discussion, and maybe wide receiver is the most talked about position right now. We haven't even talked about the number 1 guy, and that's Jacob Gill. I still think he's the number 1 guy. We haven't even mentioned him today. He had a couple of nice catches today, and I still think he'll be number 1. So I did not mean to omit Jacob Gill from the conversation, but I feel like we've touched on everybody but Gill. So anyway, sorry to take away.
I'll let you guys go, and I appreciate you guys being able to catch those games because sometimes other people have stuff to do, so you at least have some people with the inside who are actually there and can tell people what went on. So appreciate you guys and enjoy your weekend.
Thank you, James. Appreciate your call as always. Good stuff. Folks, like and subscribe as you see up on the banner. It does help us in the algorithm as we wrap things up here. We've got one more caller, Nate, and then a question from Kelvin. He says, what does McNeil look like in person? Same size as Ronnie. Is he a tougher blocker? Is he a tough blocker like Ronnie? Elusive, and he is a good hands guy. He demonstrated good hands out of the backfield. So Kelvin is hopeful that McNeil could be a Ronnie Harmon-esque guy.
You know, I honestly don't know yet, simply because when I was at practice, I didn't pick up on McNeil on Wednesday so much as I did today. Of course, he was a starting back for the practice today, and I was zeroing in on him, and I was up in the press box without any interruption from anyone. And he impressed me today. I could see he's going to help us even as a true freshman. Now, maybe he'll only get some mop-up duty, but that's okay. He's going to get his feet wet this year, I do believe.
All right, let's go to our final caller. We've got Nate on the line. Nate, welcome to the show.
Hi, Corey. It was great to meet you today.
Hey, Nate, how are you?
I'm good. I just want to say, with starting with the offensive line, it was unfortunate that I think Bo Stevens got hurt, right? And
So I don't know that Bo got hurt today because he's been dinged up. He's been dinged up. This is what Kirk said yesterday. He's been dinged up. He came out in uniform and he was signing autographs. But then I know he was in street clothes by the end of the practice. So again, I never saw 70 out there. Did you, Don?
No, I didn't.
So I don't know that. I don't think. Sounds like he's going to be back starting Monday. That was sort of the consensus on the media side. I think he'll be back Monday, Nate. But they do need him back because he's one of their top 3 linemen.
And also, I was pretty impressed with the quarterback play, especially from Hank Brown. He threw a couple touchdowns, which was good to see. Helinski also looked good. The only thing I'd say out of the quarterback room that maybe was a little disappointing was Jackson Stratton. He looked like he struggled a little bit from he kind of threw a couple incompletions. I mean, that's the only complaint I have out of the quarterback room.
And so, Nate, I'll defer to Don on this because I'm sure you've had quarterbacks experience this. Maybe you've even experienced it yourself. Jackson's been dealing with a hernia.
I've had an inguinal hernia. It's no fun.
So that, just so people know, because I don't know that was out there until yesterday. Kirk did make mention of that, Nate, that Jackson's been out with a hernia injury. So I was even surprised to see him out. Did we see him throw today? I know he came out there and handed the ball off, but
I thought he threw a few balls.
Okay.
Yeah, not many.
I feel bad for him, but that is some perspective. It's unfortunate, but I wouldn't read too far because he looked pretty good at the spring practice. Remember, you and I were talking about him maybe being number 2 behind Gronowski.
He didn't look that badly last fall, even when he played.
That's true. So
good job in difficult circumstances.
But I agree with you, Nate, on Hank Brown. Just the room at quarterback, the room at receiver, they look deeper, steadier, everywhere at those 2 places. And I'm not ripping anybody, but I don't think it's a coincidence that the coaching change that they had, I should say the 2 coaching changes that they've had over the last 2 years, not, Liddell, not talking about Liddell Betts because he left for an NFL job, but the other 2 changes were those 2 positions, quarterback and receiver. And I think we see already signs of a deeper, more mature, in line to be more productive pair of groups at those 2 positions. And so give credit to Budmeyer, but I think Tim Lester's made a huge difference, just my perspective, on both of those rooms.
I agree.
I just want to say I was really impressed with Carson Schauer. He started like causing turnovers, like fumbles at the practice, and he penetrated to the ball really quick. It was really good to see because the linebacker has been a question mark this year.
Yeah, I think Carson's got a chance. He showed signs as a freshman. Again, his problem's been health. But, yeah, I agree with you, Nate. He could end up being the top tackler on the team, and it's his time. He's finally healthy, kind of like Myslinski, and Harrell's been waiting his turn. I don't think it's been because of injury, just he's had guys in front of him.
And you say it's his time. That's the tradition of Iowa football.
Sure.
When it's your time,
Jay Higgins, same position, right? Jay Higgins is a perfect example of that.
Yep.
So
don't bet against those guys. They're going to play and play well.
Also, I know Kamari Moulton was out with. I know he wasn't hurt, but did he just like opt out of the practice, not do it?
No, I think
I don't think that's an option.
Yeah, I don't think I think it was more of a precautionary thing. Right. He was out there signing, so it's not like he was in an iron lung or anything like that.
Yeah.
So he'll be fine. I think he'll be fine, Nate. If anything, get Nate McNeil some extra time, and I wouldn't be shocked now, Donna. And I'm not going to read into one practice and have it change my mind, but would you be shocked if on day 1 your top 2 guys at tailback are Moulton and McNeil? Would that shock you?
No.
I mean, who would have guessed that after Caleb Johnson departed? We would have thought it was, well, Moulton and Jazz and Terrell Washington and maybe a Xavier Williams. But I think Nate McNeil right now could end up being one of their top 2 guys. Hey, he could end up being their top guy. Crazier things have happened.
Yeah, it's a little easier for a freshman to play running back than a lot of other positions because it's really a little more just on natural ability. You can make the transition a little bit easier at running back than certain other positions like O-line, D-line.
DB's a little easier.
Quarterback, DB's a little bit easier. Yeah.
Corner is a little easier.
Yep.
And is it fair to say receiver is a little easier?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's fair.
Although this system, maybe not. We keep hearing about the language of the system and complexity of the playbook and everything.
Well, in so many cases, they go through spring ball before they show up in the fall. So if you go through spring ball and you're around all summer and camp too, you should know a lot of football by the time September rolls around, even as a freshman.
Yeah. And folks, I didn't promise. I said we were going to do it. I'm going to leave that for people. If you've not seen the interview with Tim Lester, we're not going to show it on this due to time, but go listen to that. I'd say the same thing to you, Nate. Go listen to that time with Coach Lester, because what he said yesterday to me was inspiring, just from the perspective of he seems genuinely excited about this room. Maybe not to the extent that some people are excited. People, they were reading into what Kirk said at Big Ten Media Days about how the room looks like what the offensive line room did a year ago, like it's finally there. But Tim really seemed genuine about that when I asked him yesterday. So you might take that, again, more read into that than what you saw today, because Tim's there each and every day, each and every practice. So.
Yeah, I listened to a little bit of the interview with Tim, and it gave me some. It was positive because I'll be going to the first game on August 30th, and I'm just hoping to see maybe just a good offensive performance. Not looking to show too much because we want to be able to be prepared for Iowa State the next week. The only complaint I have on the defensive side of the ball is I thought it got better, but the D line, I don't know if it's because our O line might just be better than the D line, but the D line, it just didn't seem to penetrate much pressure at the start, but it got better as the practice went on. I thought Herkett was impressive as usual, and it'll be interesting to see with Jeremiah Pittman hurt currently, who's going to step up in that D tackle spot.
Yeah, I think it's Bryce Hawthorne, Jonah Bass. I think it's those guys' job to lose as long as Pittman's out. And even with Pittman, I think Hawthorne is the higher upside guy based on everything I've heard and seen. Jeremiah Pittman's role, how do you describe a guy like Jeremiah Pittman? Because he is, I'm not trying to rip on Jeremiah Pittman, but he's a space guy. Like, he's going to clog up a lot of space. He's not going to probably get you any sacks this year, or if he maybe get you one or two. But there are difference between a Jeremiah Pittman tackle and a guy like Bryce Hawthorne, who maybe has that athletic burst that some other guys don't have.
Yeah, some people call them space eaters.
Yep. Vince Wilfork, maybe not to that extent, but a guy who takes up space.
Yeah, hopefully they just keep the linebackers clean. So often there are two offensive linemen that are responsible for the defensive tackle and the linebacker. And if the DT can tie up those two players and keep the linebacker free, then even though he's not in on the tackle, he's able to keep someone else healthy to be able to play.
Nate, I got to ask you, how old are you, Nate?
I'm 12.
12? He knows his football pretty good for 12, right? Would you agree with that?
Nate, you're a very well-spoken young man, and it appears you know a lot about football, or you're sitting next to someone that does.
Well, I've always liked football. I think it's a great sport. Another thing that I was interested to see today is, I know you've talked a lot about KJ Parker, how he's been impressing everybody at fall camp. It was interesting to see him play. I think he definitely has a lot of raw potential on him. And it was also interesting to see another player, Yosei Epanessa, who has a lot of hype around him. I thought it was interesting to see because Yosei got mostly third team reps. And I think KJ got first, second, and third team reps. So I just have a question, what do you think is the potential for KJ and Yosei?
I don't know. I think Yosei's potential, he's a true freshman, but who was it? I was talking to one of the guys yesterday at Media Day, one of the players, and they said, yeah, when Yosei walked in for the first time, they thought it was AJ. He really looks like him in the face, and he's got some of the same traits personality-wise. So I think Yosei, I haven't been there for more practices than just today. You've been there a little bit, but he's so raw and so young. I think he's got a chance to be a great player, an all Big Ten player, an NFL player, probably like his brother.
He reminds me a lot of AJ at a young age. Yes.
And then as far as KJ is concerned, man, based on what Tim has done with other seemingly unheralded receiver prospects, man, wouldn't that be great if he's Iowa's next, or I would say Iowa's first, but first in a long time receiver that is all Big Ten or even better.
We haven't had many, have we?
Have not had. I don't know when's the last time they've had a all Big Ten receiver. I'm sure maybe Smith Marset got honorable mention. Maybe, I don't know. I'd have to go back and look. But yeah, they need. I think both those guys have really good potential. KJ because of his speed, and then Yosei just because of a lot of things. His physical makeup. I think he's got to learn. He's got to learn the system and learn how to play big.
I've been around, so my family, they're friends with somebody that knows the Epanessa family, and so I've been around Yosei since he was like 12. And you could just see how much, and even like Eric when he was like 14 or 15, and you could just see how much like they look like their brother and their dad. And it's just great to see them continuing to stay with Iowa.
The whole family, yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Nate, I appreciate you calling in, sir. Thanks for coming up to me today. I always enjoy when young people like yourself watch the show and interact and keep up the good work with your knowledge. You may have a podcast yourself someday, so keep up the good work.
Yeah, you too. Just keep posting videos. You'll get big someday.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you, Nate. Always good to hear from our young fans out there, right?
Absolutely.
And I say I'm talking about Iowa fans, right? But yeah, no, I appreciate it, Nate. And again, everybody that was there today, just showing out to support Iowa and engaging in conversation. It was a beautiful day. There was a possibility of storms today. We didn't have any. Hopefully everybody stays safe this evening. I know there's more potential there, and the river's already high. I drove by the river here in Iowa City. It's at a high mark. So hopefully people stay safe, but still a lot of fall camps still to go. Don, any final thoughts on what we saw today?
Well, I think you're going to see at least one more week of fundamental football. Maybe they'll introduce some stuff for game one. Truthfully, you'll probably see 2 weeks of fundamental football. And then, of course, the third week would be game week itself. It'll be interesting to see. My guess is they're going to work on Iowa State some in advance of game week so that they can get a little bit of a jump on Iowa State. I believe Iowa State opens up overseas, right?
Ireland.
Against K-State?
Against K-State, yep.
Yeah, so at least Iowa State has to really put all their focus on K-State in advance of the Iowa game, and we'll have a chance to work on them maybe where they don't have that same opportunity to work on us. I'm talking about either next week or this upcoming week, one or the other.
Folks, stay tuned to our channel here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. We'll have a video of Kirk Ferentz. He talked with the media following the open practice, so we got about 10 or so minutes with him, so stay tuned for that. If you didn't catch all of the show, it'll be posted on our podcast platforms. You can also rewind and watch it right here on YouTube. Be sure you like the video. Thank you to those people right there, Iowa Floor Covering up in the corner of the screen, for sponsoring this, and you can donate to the show. That's always appreciated. If you have questions about sponsorship, you can reach out to me, my email, where we field questions on sponsorship related inquiries. info@fromthehawkeyeofthestorm.com as we approach a very busy football, men's basketball, women's basketball, and even some wrestling coverage here From the Hawkeye of the Storm. Reach out to inquire. It doesn't cost anything to inquire. @From the Hawkeye on X and on Instagram, From the Hawkeye of the Storm on Facebook. Don, thank you for opening up your home, being a part of this show as always. Year 5 of you and I doing the show. That's flown by. Is that scary or?
Time flies when you're having fun.
That's right. So, folks, Iowa, of course, opens the season versus Albany on the 30th day of August. And we got Fry Fest the 29th. So much more right here on the platform. So thank you for being here, folks. Be safe from the storms this evening. Continue to root for your Hawkeyes. Good things ahead. And we'll talk to you next time.